Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 61. Stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself. So as you know, all month we've been talking about how easy it can be to lose who we are over the years, and we can reinvent ourselves and find ourselves again. So this week I wanted to talk about how easy it can be to not live the life that you want. Sounds crazy on the surface, right? And a lot of us probably would have a hard time admitting that we've let this happen. But it can happen. It can happen because it's not the life that you want, but rather what may work best for others right now. And when I say right now, it's because a lot of times this can happen so innocently, and then the days stretch into months and into years, and then here you are. So in other words, it's not something that is typically intended for long term. But no, you say, but yes, I affirm, it's too easy, especially for women, because we can be socialized to be caregivers and focus on other people's needs. Also, the big thing I want you to remember is it can happen so slowly, so insidiously, that you aren't really even noticing until perhaps it catches up with you. And you can be anywhere on this continuum. Those who have listened to me for a while, that there are very few things that I tend to be binary on. I try not to do the black and white all or nothing. But instead, as you listen today, I want you to picture yourself somewhere on this continuum. And if you're on the end of the continuum where it's just a little bit, that's wonderful, because you know what? You can be proactive and stop the slippery slope from happening, or at least from getting worse. Okay, so what are some of the indicators that maybe you're not living your own best life, but perhaps living for others or putting what you want and need on hold? One of the most obvious ones, I think, is numbing out. And we can numb out with lots of things. We can numb out with substances. We can numb out with food, with shopping, with sex. Watching lots of TV is a big one, or reading lots of books where you're focused on what other people are doing, what's going on in their lives. I mean, like following the royal family, or sport athletes, or movie stars, or famous people, or groups of people. It doesn't really matter. It's not that we shouldn't have passions or resonate with certain people out there in the world. We need to. But if a lot of our focus is on what they're doing and what they're not doing, and all the good stuff that might be happening for them, we can put ourselves on the shelf while we do that. Okay, and another way we can do that is living vicariously through others, namely through kids, right? And they don't even have to be your own kids. I mean, let's face it, they can be your nieces and nephews that you're really close to, or your best friend's kids. So living life through them, it's a fine line, right? Of course, you want to be there and be in their life, to love them and support them and be involved, but just make sure there's a balance between that and what you are doing for self, okay? So living vicariously through others. With our kids, we can put a lot of pressure on them to live their best life that maybe we didn't, or maybe, let's get honest, we're still afraid to, okay? Another indicator that you might not be living your own life is a lot of overthinking and obsessing and ruminating and having a hard time falling asleep, and a lot of anxiety and controlling up in our head, which I think takes us out of the moment. In fact, one of the answers to anxiety and fending off a panic attack is, where am I right now? Focus on my breath, notice what's going on in the room, what's going on in my body, how I feel, getting back to self. If you're bored often, or distracted, or listless, or frustrated, that's an indicator you're just not where you're supposed to be. And you may think you're just bored, but I would encourage you to look a little deeper and see what might be going on there. Why do you feel bored? Why does that make sense? Sometimes we get bored too because we're outgrowing something that worked for us a year ago, and that's okay. Depression, obvious indicator, and a lot of times this is dysthymia, right? That low-grade depression you hear me talk about a lot, where, yeah, you function and you get up and you go to work and you put one foot in front of the other, but you're just not alive and you don't have a wide range of affect. In other words, you don't get excited, you don't feel joy, you don't crack up when something's funny, you're just kind of functioning. Dysthymia is often correlated with social anxiety, self-esteem issues, anxiety and panic. You know, you've heard me talk about that internal conflict of anxiety and panic attacks, that sometimes we are really, truly going against ourselves, but on a deep, sometimes subconscious level, so we're not aware of it on a given day, but it's there. And we may not realize it until someone starts asking us some really difficult questions, like, are you happy? Are you happy? Like, really? Are you doing work that you love, no matter what that work may be? And that could be being a mom, being a stay-at-home dad. It could be anything. But do you feel like you're using your gifts? Do you feel like you're in the right environments too? Anxiety and depression, obvious ones. Somatic issues, physical complaints, lots of health issues, stress can cause a lot of that. And our body is dealing with that internal fight that I just talked about. That's very stressful and it really wears on our bodies. We're storing that anger, that frustration, and all those pent up feelings in our body. And it's not a good thing. If we find ourselves like pulling away from going out and connecting with people, and I know it's COVID, but still picking up the phone, we're not just terribly excited to share what's going on in our life, right? Because maybe we're just not terribly happy with what's going on in our life. Or, deep down we're embarrassed. We're not where we would like to be. There's some incongruence going on there. We're not going after goals, or maybe we started to and got frustrated and kicked back and we dropped the ball. So, of course, it doesn't make you really want to pick up the phone and share with people what's going on with you. And it might be hard to hear good stuff that's going on for them, even though deep down you're happy for them, right? Of course you want to see them flourish. But if you're not, that's hard. Another big thing that a lot of people don't talk about is just focusing on the crisis du jour. It's like crisis to crisis to crisis. Big and little crises, right? Focusing outside of ourselves, putting out fires. If we got honest, sometimes creating fires so we have something to do to put them out, because as long as you have a fire to put out, and this is going to sound awful, you don't have to sit and feel, and you don't have to look at what's really going on inside of you and in your life. Focusing on what everyone else needs now, compulsively. It's like you wouldn't admit this unless someone sat you down lovingly and said, hey, you need to climb down from the cross and stop taking care of everyone else but yourself. But this keeps us distracted from self. Do you see how well that works? It's a beautiful thing in a bad way. You're too busy. You're doing, going. You're too busy to focus on what's really going on inside. And oftentimes it's because we feel overwhelmed by that concept and we don't want to face it. We don't want to face ourselves and we're not sure how to fix it. I think that's a big thing that trips people up. How do I get out of this hole? If you've been a caregiver, oftentimes what can happen is you were going along, doing great, focusing on you, going after a goal, and bam, something happened. A financial thing happened. A loved one got sick, and you had to move home and take care of them. COVID happened. I mean, look how disruptive COVID has been, right? So life events, and then what happens is we kind of settle into the groove, and because our brains are so adaptive, like you hear me talk about all the time, it starts becoming the new normal. And then there goes a year, right? So we want to be vigilant about that and have loving accountability in our life. Like, okay, where's the time limit on this? And how do I not get lost in the sauce here? How do I climb back out a little bit and start refocusing on me? Another indicator that you're not living your own life is a lot of lashing out, a lot of anger outbursts, especially around stupid stuff, focusing on how everyone else is screwing up around you, how they're letting you down, disappointing you, and how dare they. As you can see, the moral of the story is we stop focusing within and we're focusing on externals. And the answer is, as you can see, I want you to really bring it back to yourself in a loving, compassionate way. Not denial, some compassionate acceptance of where you are and maybe how you got here. But the other thing I want to talk about next is, how does this really happen though? Like, why does one person, even if a life event shows up, right, and they have to stop their life and take care of someone, what's the difference between the person who does that for time being and still takes care of themselves and the person who just gets sucked in and can't go back? I think there are some early indicators in our life that become what I call the setup that can be key to understanding this. So there are several early episodes that you can go back to in terms of what we talk about childhood setup, like where did this start? We talked a little bit about it last week. If you haven't already, I want you to grab some of those episodes again and get a good sense of maybe what happened growing up that fostered your tendency to lose who you are, to abandon yourself, to focus on others and their needs, put that first. That's really going to be important. It's not to blame and shame these poor folks. It's about understanding the etiology. 1, so you can stop beating yourself up today. And 2, so you understand how ingrained this can be, right? These behaviors were created early on, so you're really going to have to work hard to change that paradigm. All right, so one of the ways that you can be really prone to not living your life, obviously, is people-pleasing. I mean, I don't think I need to tell you why, but I will. If you're pleasing everyone and trying to make people happy and impression management, like we've talked about, like you want them to think you are a wonderful, selfless, caring, giving, affectionate, meaningful person. But people-pleasing is focusing on what other people want so I can be okay. And that is so messed up. We've talked about it in previous episodes. It's emotionally dishonest. We are lying to them. And it's really the smile with the clenched teeth, right? It's the anger behind the smile. There's the codependent false self and then perhaps the real self, aka internal conflict. You can't people-please and honor yourself. I don't care who you are and what argument you want to give me, we can't. We can't. Perfectionism is the other one. If I have to do something perfectly or not at all, it's going to make it really hard for me to want to step out there, take a risk, go back to school, start a new career, follow my passions, be assertive, set a boundary, let go, to risk, right? We've talked before about perfectionism is my external validation that I can be okay if I don't screw up, if it all goes perfectly, if everyone's happy today, and if I make everyone happy today. It's rather grandiose and it's unattainable and it's a prison. So if you have perfectionism going on, I encourage to really work on that. And that will open the door for you to be able to start taking some risks, okay? Avoiding conflict is a part of people-pleasing and perfectionism. It's a part of perfectionism because I don't want anybody to be mad. I want everything to go smoothly. I can't handle any wrinkles. It can't be messy. I don't know what to do with feelings. Maybe I shut down my feelings a long time ago for good reason. And the people-pleasing, obviously. You can't people-please and tolerate conflict, usually. In fact, we people-please to avoid conflict. We can't handle their anger. Can't handle their anger because we have way too much toxic shame that needs to be healed. And so we can't say, oh, okay, they're pissed at me because I screwed up and that makes sense. Let me go fix that. It's, oh my God, they're pissed at me and I'm an awful person and they'll probably hate me and leave. So shame and guilt, 2 very different things. If you're in a toxic environment today, often because you grew up with less than stellar environments, no family is perfect, but I'm talking about down there on that end of the continuum where it was chaotic, there was a lot of fighting, maybe there was abuse, maybe there was substance abuse, sexual abuse, all that stuff that makes it a toxic environment. Hardship and circumstances early on can set people up to live in fear and not risk and just survive, and to not trust that the world can be okay and that there might be people out there that can encourage you and support you, and you're allowed to be successful and you're allowed to thrive. If you grew up in a very fear-based mindset because the family was struggling, and I want to honor, there's some real struggles out there. There's poverty. There's living in dangerous neighborhoods. There's unemployment. And right now, so many of us are struggling seriously with COVID, with unemployment, and can't pay your rent and things like that. So I want to honor those have big impacts, and they can be a form of trauma that you can carry with you. Even if your family, let's say, came into more financial stability later on, it's hard to shake that fear mindset of, yeah, let's step out and take a risk, shall we? Maybe there are circumstances where you lost a parent early on or lost a sibling, and that just changed everything. I mean, I work with people who, it's so sad, but I understand, years later, because their little brother passed away, they still felt guilty for being happy and really flourishing. So there are lots of different circumstances and hardships that you could have incurred early on in life that may still be impacting you. Lack of healthy support today. Again, that's its own continuum. You get to figure out kind of where you are on there. If people around you are not ones who they themselves practice good self-care, have good boundaries, and go after things that they want and need in a healthy way, it's going to be really hard for them to support you going after yours. You know, we've talked in previous episodes where that's going to feel very threatening to them because you could leave. Deep down, they know if you really go after what you want and come into your own, are you going to want to stay? Can you stay? Or will you outgrow? And that's a true thing. And I think maybe sometimes subconsciously we ourselves are afraid to leave and outgrow. That can be very unsettling, and it can bring up a lot of that unearned guilt, like you're responsible for their well-being as well as your own, even though they may not want to take any steps to better their life kind of thing. You know, last week we talked about helpers and hinderers. Those are important environmental variables. If you didn't listen to that episode, I encourage you to go back to that one as well. And finally, just a basic fear of success and failure. It's a self-esteem issue. You know, risk is scary because you can't control the outcomes, and what if you fail and you're awful? And it's all black and white thinking, right? As opposed to, okay, I fail, dust it off, get back up. Let me see what lessons I need to learn. And how can I do it better? Or how can I tweak it? So those are some of the pieces that can become the setup. There are many, many more that I don't have time to mention today. But hopefully it gives you a sense, like, how did I get here? So how did this happen? How did I get here? And hopefully going forward, you will take responsibility for the things that you can make different today. You can't change what's happened so far. Guys, remember, this is not the time to wallow in self-pity or self-loathing. That won't get you anywhere. So how do you get back to you? How do you get back to your authentic self? How do you find you for the first time, perhaps? Clients ask me this all the time. And to be honest, I am still learning all the pieces to this puzzle, and I probably will never finish, and that's okay, because that's my life's work. And I, too, am continually focusing on, okay, what else can I look at here? What we talked about a few moments ago and what we're learning about the brain and anxiety and meditation and PTSD and all of that, it's all the same stuff. To me, anyway, as I filter through all this research and what folks are saying and experiencing, is getting back to you and getting back in your body, like my girlfriend says all the time. I love that. She's like, up and out of my body, get back in. Growing up or being in toxic environments, you learn to get away from your body because you have to disconnect from what you feel in the moment. Like it could be terrifying or overwhelming or anger you're not allowed to have in the room because no one can handle it kind of thing. So you learn to disown, right? What you think, what you feel, what you need, and what you believe And so slowly but surely, the answer is try to get back to you throughout the day. I tell clients, I don't care if you have 5 minutes 4 times a day. Every time you do that, something starts to shift. You will feel it. Did you ever go for a weekend away or have a day trip or some kind of experience over the past several years where you had time with yourself and it was so reflective and you had all these great ideas or maybe a profound aha or just felt more peaceful because you got the hell away from everybody else for a little while? That's what I'm talking about. Getting back in touch with you, however you want to do that. Everyone is different. I encourage you, find the ways that feel good for you. But throughout the day, spend time alone. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. Go in the bathroom, lock the door, have a seat. I don't care what you do. Breathe. Where am I? What am I thinking? I tell clients, I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling during the day, even physically. Are you tired? Do you have a headache? Does your back hurt? Do you even notice? Or are you so disconnected from self and focused on taking care of everyone else? I mean, this is real, that you're not even sure. So I want you to check back in with you. Don't be mad at yourself when you do it. Be loving and kind. Just notice. Take time to journal. Even if you got 5 minutes after you drive somewhere, you park the car, get your phone out, type some things in there. I don't care how you do this. Writing and journaling and making time for you is a beautiful thing because not just are you journaling, but you're telling yourself, guess what? You deserve 10 minutes. See how you're showing yourself that? You deserve a bubble bath. You deserve a good run, a good nap, time to meditate, time to sit and reflect, time to walk on the beach. You deserve that. Every time you show yourself that you deserve to have time to stop and just to be and enjoy, you are honoring yourself. Every time you do that, you will get more and more in touch with who you really are. The other thing is you have to really work hard to get rid of the shoulds, the have-tos, and all that terrible unearned guilt you hear me talk about. Guys, earned guilt is, okay, I own it. I screwed up, dropped the ball, didn't take care of that. I have that behavior. Okay. I'm talking about unearned guilt. Like, no, I really should get that laundry done and make sure everyone is happy tonight. No, not every night, or maybe not the whole night. I want you to get rid of your have-tos and your shoulds, and I want you to change that into I want to and I am choosing because, and you better have a good reason. Your because better be convincing, and I mean that, because I want you to kind of evaluate that. I'm choosing this, but why? Here's the kicker. If you have fear that comes up, I really want you to take a look at that. Especially if it's fear of like, oh my God, what are they going to think? Or they're going to be pissed, or they're going to be disappointed. Yeah, maybe. And that's okay. Healthy people want you to take good care of yourself. Remember, healthy people are going to actually require that from you. Healthy people aren't going to want to be around you when you're not taking care of yourself. So just remind yourself of that. In that vein, you have to detach from toxicity as much as you possibly can. Let it go to voicemail. Leave the text alone. Don't seek out abuse. Don't call your mother again this week expecting a different result. If she can't be supportive, let go a little bit. Doesn't mean you don't love people. Doesn't mean you don't connect. It just means that you want to lessen your toxic exposure. You're going to have to be healthier here. Especially people who manipulate and guilt. There is no way you're going to be authentic and take care of yourself and trust your feelings and not have tremendous anger and anxiety if you're being manipulated and or guilted. Usually it's both. You got to let go of that a little bit. Talk to some healthy folks today. Balance it out as much as you can. Take responsibility for stepping away from that as much as you can. And there you go. Work on healthy boundaries, right? That's what I was kind of just saying. Get support and accountability around boundaries. We can tell ourselves all day long, oh yeah, I got great boundaries. Really? Where's the litmus test? If your friends came over today and they saw what you did all day, would they say you have good boundaries? Why or why not? Over the past week, what would be their grade they would give you on that? I think boundary work is done best with loving accountability, not shaming accountability. Loving accountability, reminding you have the right to say no. And you have the right to hear a no. And if you can't, you got to work on that. The other way is to own what you truly fear. Vulnerably. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of screwing up. I'm afraid of being disappointed. What if it's not what I want? Afraid of making the wrong decision. I'm afraid people I love aren't going to love me the same. On and on. Write down your fears, own them, and push them aside. Focus on what you want to choose. Write down what you care about and why. And this isn't for anyone else's eyes, only for you. And maybe it's a select few people in your life who can encourage you. People who have good boundaries, right? It's like, oh, okay, good for you. And they don't need to insert themselves. Or maybe they can even validate that for you. Like your girlfriend can say, or your best guy friend can say, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, kind of how I know who you are. That makes sense that that's what you're passionate about. I like that about you. We need to hear that. Write down moments also when you didn't honor yourself today or the last few days or this past week. Not to judge, remember, but just to observe. Use some neutrality here. This is the key. We can't shame ourselves into better behavior, right? So a really cool thing that I learned how to do many years ago was bring some objectivity and some neutrality to it. What I mean by that is like, that's interesting. I avoided that today. I didn't take care of that. Wow. Okay. Yikes. Not, I can't believe I didn't do that. Or why can't I do that? Not beating myself up, not judging, just observing, just noticing. And sometimes I would say, that makes sense. I had some fear, had some vulnerability going on. Didn't feel very confident and strong enough to pull that off today. Okay. And the next thing I would say is, all right, what do I need to do? Maybe I need to pick up the phone and ask for help, ask for encouragement. I need to work on some things. Use the neutral observer stance and then take responsibility. And I want you to see the magic start to happen as you do that. Also, I want you to take moments out throughout the day and affirm what you feel and what you need and why that matters. Remember the mantra, take me out, put someone worth their salt in my place. Would they feel this? Why or why not? And why might they need this? Validate it. Do the no wonder. No wonder I'm tired. No wonder I need a nap. Over and over and over again. Just do this and do this and do this. It may feel awkward. It may feel scary. It may feel uncomfortable. It may feel wonderful. It will feel better the more you do it, that I promise. So within all of this, what I've included today, and I've used these in groups for years, and I just think they're really powerful. And some people can think they're cheesy and obvious and roll their eyes, and that's okay. But this one is a Bill of Rights, and it's one that you can download from today's show notes if you want and print it out. I like to take a Bill of Rights, and I encourage clients to take one a week or one a month and kind of meditate on it and really focus on it and see where you struggle and start practicing living it out to the fullest, okay? That way you're not just reading the list and say, yeah, that's me, and putting it down and walking away. You are actually sitting with each one thoughtfully, lovingly, and honestly so that you can start really living these out, all right? So the first one is, I have a right to think and feel whatever is true for me. If others can't handle that, that's about them. Number 2, I can live my life in a way that feels right for me and can be helpful for the greater good. Number 3, I can trust what I think, feel, and need as real and valid. Number 4, I have the right to say no to whatever doesn't feel right, or maybe just no longer feels right for me today. Number 5, just because others may feel threatened by me being me, that has nothing to do with me. That's really just their own insecurity. Number 6, I have the right to trust where my inner spirit leads me. Number 7, I am not responsible for others' feelings, choices, or behaviors. Number 8, I am the only one who has the right to make decisions for me. Number 9, I can live my life authentically and still be there for those I love. And number 10, I have the right to change and transform into who I was meant to be. All right, so there's your Bill of Rights. Some of them you may not struggle with at all. There might be one or two that are really difficult. Those are the ones I would encourage you to really hone in on. Explore it, get some help around that, do some journaling, get some loving accountability, work on it. So these, along with a million more wonderful rights as a human, I think are necessary to instill into your belief system so your actions and your choices can proceed from there, because we can't feel good about ourselves if we're out of alignment with who we are meant to be. And what I mean by that is, what are your values? What are you passionate about? What are your life experiences? What's meaningful to you and why? What do you think your talents or your gifts are? What are you drawn to? What do other people love about you? Not just the stuff you can do for them either, but what do they love about you as a person? Remember, it's just so common to slowly subvert all of these things when life seems to get in the way. So some takeaways today for you. If you've lost yourself over the years, don't worry, please. You were always meant to be found. It can happen. It can happen whenever you're ready to do it. It can happen day by day, moment by moment. You don't have to make any huge grand gestures. In fact, and I say this all the time, I notice when I work with clients and with myself, it's all the little habits and all the little tiny changes that you start doing will propel you to make bigger and bigger, better changes, because it'll empower you and strengthen those muscles so that you'll be able to pull that off. Everything you do that feels like the right thing to do for you today is empowering. Everything that you feel, everything you follow through and do, when you have a nudge or your intuition guides you, or you have an aha, or something seems really great, I encourage you to try to follow that. I don't care how small it is. Every time you do that, you honor yourself. Also, practice the tools we talked about today and see what begins to unfold for you, because I promise you, you're going to feel more alive and on purpose. I know you've had moments in your life where that has happened and you're like, wow. A lot of times, though, we come back home, we get back into our regular life and we forget. As you do this, you will also feel more of a sense of purpose. And speaking of purpose, this will begin to reveal itself in time for you. Because as you learn and grow, as you, what I call, re-own the self, I think your purpose will evolve. So remember from last week what I said, that this is a discovery process. This is a process that you aren't going to have a hell of a lot of control over. You can only control how you show up, how much you show up, and what you're willing to try. Please make the journey a gentle and loving one. This is not about shame and blame for you or anyone else. It's about taking the journey on a positive, hopeful note, taking moments to appreciate how profound it can be. Allow change, allow healing, do the work, see what unfolds. It's never, ever, ever too late. If you're breathing, it's not too late. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm hearing from you guys that you're getting so much out of these episodes, and that just really touches my heart. May you stay healthy, grounded in this crazy world, right? And keep holding on to hope. Do not give up. Focus on all that good in yourself. Find the good in others. Find something good in the world today. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com and sign up for the newsletter each Tuesday if you already haven't. Join our Facebook group. We're small, but we're mighty. I'm going to be doing some more stuff in there. Download the Bill of Rights. Focus on that. Share it with friends. All right. Pay it forward. Keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.